A very good evening and a warm welcome to all our viewers to an enriching knowledge series on airport planning and development. We would like to thank our sponsor for today's session, Armstrong Ceiling Solutions. Allow me to introduce you to what all we have in store for us in today's session. Armstrong Ceiling Solutions presents Airport Planning and Development. The Indian aviation industry is expected to witness a boom as the Government of India is scheduled to invest billions of US dollars exclusively for the development of airport infrastructure in India, with over 70 airports to be built in India by 2026. iDAC, India's largest knowledge-sharing platform which supports innovation in the industry, is bringing together acclaimed national and international practices whose forte is in airport infrastructure, along with representatives from the Airport Authority of India. The concept of this knowledge series is to share and understand international design processes, ideas, and technology as they showcase the process of development of airport infrastructure. Keeping this thought in mind, iDAC introduces India's very first virtual summit on airport planning and development, which will throw light upon various technical aspects of the airport planning and development processes in detail from architectural, services, design, government and infrastructure, and other operations perspectives. The opening note for today's session is going to be delivered by Mr. P.V. Somasundaram, Executive Director, Business Head, India and SAARC, Armstrong World Industries India Private Limited. Today we will first begin with a panel discussion where we will discuss about the terminal or passenger experience, operational planning and infrastructure modeling for efficient airport construction and expansion, airport management, master planning, passenger experience, emerging technologies, airport operations, demand forecasting, and support facilities will be discussed in today's panel discussion. Our panel comprises of distinguished personalities with rich experience from airport infra, design, and build industry. Our moderator for today's session is Mr. Subramaniam V., National Head, Solution Sales and Product Management, Armstrong World Industries Private Limited. Our panelists for today's session are Ms. Aryama Sanyal, Airport Director, Indore, Mr. S. Sreekumar, Executive Director, Engineering, Airports Authority of India, Architect Charanjit Singh Shah, Founding Principal, Creative Group, Architect Nilabh Nagar, Senior Associate Architect, Architect Hafeez Contractor. Our panel discussion is going to be followed by a case study presentation on the CST Airport Terminal 2, Mumbai. Our guest speaker for this session is Architect Christoph Tin, Associate Director, SOM, New York, in conversation with Architect Vivek Bhole, Neo-Modern Architects. Thank you.
Greetings from KCS, Knopf Ceiling Solutions, an amalgamation of Armstrong and AMF. We are stronger together to deliver exciting ceiling solutions and give the designers, customers, and users a great experience. We are in the process of transformation and going to complete the process very soon. A warm welcome to all from KCS India team for this event on design of airports. We are in India for about 25 years with a large sales force and offices and more than 80 channel partners spread across India. We at KCS offer almost entire gamut of ceiling solutions from mineral fiber to metal, wood ceilings to soft fiber, soundscape shapes to wood wool Hera design and growing. This gives us flexibility and ability to offer right solutions which fit your design intents. We executed many large projects across various industry segments. Amongst them, we executed many airport projects like metal radial ceiling installed at a height of around 100 meters and is also designed to handle a very high wind load. It is in Delhi ATC Tower and other airports like Patna, Amritsar, Mohali, Lucknow, Chandigarh, Chennai, etc. We are currently executing Chennai, Bengaluru, and the list goes on. Airports are iconic projects as They leave a lasting opinion about a country for anyone who lands. So, we understand the importance of delivering your designs. We take this opportunity to ascertain that we understand the best in the entire acoustic modular ceiling industry about the functional aspects of human comfort with respect to acoustical performance along with the aesthetics. We scaled up our operations to offer, execute, and deliver these right solutions for mega projects like airports, metros, railways, apart from large office spaces for which we are known for. In this endeavor, we developed internal design team, YISC, You Inspire Solution Center team, headed by our Mr. Subramaniam. This team works closely with architects and designers from initial stage to understand the designs and suggest appropriate products and solutions. We are also involved in training the installers, supervisors to ensure that these solutions are understood well and installed in the right way to deliver the intended designs. KCS, your designs delivered. We thank the organizers for giving us the chance to present KCS and the dignitaries for being part of this exciting panel discussion. We thank you once again. Thank you.
Hello, friends. Good evening to one and all, and a very warm welcome to the iDAC Airport Summit panel discussion. My name is Subramaniam, and I would be moderating this session today. I'm actually from Armstrong Sealing Solutions, now known as Knopf Sealing Solutions. A little bit about what we're going to discuss today. As children, most of us would have been fascinated with flying objects. I vividly remember sitting on the terrace of my house trying to fathom how objects could fly. And I also can't forget the day when I had a close encounter with these planes when I had to go to see my cousin who was flying to a faraway land. And I was overawed at the huge airport terminal and panoramic views it offered. I'm still overawed every single time I pass through airports. And to me, airports are a celebration of man's success in harnessing the power of Mother Nature. Airport designs are pretty complex and pretty exciting also. Today we have a panel that would help us understand more about the designing of airports. I have the honor of introducing the very distinguished and esteemed panel members who are experts and masters in their fields, and I'm very sure that this diverse set of people would make the discussion a very, very interesting one. Firstly, I would like to introduce Sreekumar. Sreekumar is the Executive Director Engineering, looking after the engineering works of the Eastern Region and Airports Authority of India. He had taken over charge since 1st of December 2019. Prior to this, he had worked in various capacities in engineering, planning, and operations. He was the General Manager Planning for 4.5 years from September 2012 and was responsible for master planning of airports in the Eastern and Northeastern region and was looking after the macro and micro planning also. He was the nodal point for the infrastructure development of the Northeastern airports. And from April 2017 to May 2019, he had worked as the Regional Executive Director of Southern Region, responsible for administration of more than 25 airports and air navigation services of private airports of Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Cochin. And from June 2019 to November 2019, he was the Airport Director of Chennai Airport, the biggest airport of the Airports Authority of India. Welcome, sir. And next, I would like to introduce Mr. Nilabh Nagar. Of course, he doesn't need introduction. With more than 2 decades of experience, Nilabh has shown a keen interest in the building technology and use of innovative materials, as well as energy conservation and architecture, and with special focus on fenestration and lighting design. And he has widely traveled around the world to study buildings, urban spaces, material exhibitions, and conferences in Europe. Welcome, sir. Professor Charanjit Singh Shah is an architect planner, and an infrastructure expert with 5 decades of practice. He's an author, scholar, educationist, teacher, art, architecture, practicing sustainable and green architecture. His works speak of his contribution looking beyond architecture and development of large infrastructure projects like airports, metro, railway stations, transit-oriented development, intermodal hub, and creating sustainable, walkable, cyclable neighborhoods and creating Indian sustainable smart cities of tomorrow. Of course, he is adorably called as Airport King in the circle of airports, and everybody who was worked in the field of airport would really know him. Let me also introduce Professor Charanjit Singh Shah. Professor Charanjit Singh Shah is an architect, planner, and infrastructure expert with 5 decades of experience. He is an author, scholar, educationist, teacher of art and architecture critic, practicing sustainable green architecture. His work speaks of contribution looking beyond architecture and development of large infrastructure projects like airport, metro, railway station, transit-oriented development, intermodal hub, and creating sustainable, walkable, and cyclable neighborhoods and creating Indian sustainable smart cities of tomorrow. He is adorably called as Airport King in the circle of designing and architecture of airports. Welcome, Charanjit sir. And next, I would like to also introduce Ms. Aryama Sanyal. Ms. Sanyal joined the Airports Authority in the year 1989, and she is among the pioneer women air traffic controllers and moved on to be the first woman to get the Area Control Center rating. She is also the first woman air traffic controller who's continued till now in service. Having served in the Airports Authority of India for over 30 years, she's been posted in various airports like Calcutta, Delhi, Udaipur, Jaipur, Ahmedabad, and Mangalore before joining in Indore. The Government of India has honored her with the award for significant contribution to civil aviation at the centenary celebrations in 2011. Under her supervision, the Indore airport has been recipient to numerous awards. Welcome, Arima ma'am, and welcome all panelists to this discussion. I would also start off with some of the questions that we have in mind, and I would call upon each one of the panelists to put across our question. The first question is to Nilabh. Nilabh sir, today the airport terminal is all about passenger experience. Countries like China consider airports as image projects, and first time any foreigner lands in an airport leaves a lasting impression about the country. Airports like Changi, Singapore, or Incheon, Seoul, or even Hong Kong Airport vie to take the best impression among travelers. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, you're absolutely right on this fact. And I think I quite endorse the fact that airports have to be a great experience for people. When we started out our first journey, when Airport Authority of India asked us to revamp the Mumbai airport, I think quite some time ago, when at that point of time, the airport designs were of a certain type. And the intention of that government at that time was to kind of increase this whole idea of passenger experience itself, as to treat passengers with give them a full new experience of what an airport can be. There were huge examples internationally for where it could happen. So at that point of time, we started with revamping the Bombay Airport Terminal T1B at that time, and then we created a kind of a voluminous space for the check-in counters, and then at that time the baggage handling system had just come in into the scheme, and then we created a new departure lounge, and then we created an arrival lounge and subsequently. And then in that kind of, I think, started this whole new journey in India as far as airport development started, and then a lot of airports started taking up. But just about that time, the privatization happened, and you had 2008 or around 2006, 2008 is when UK and GMR took over Bombay and Delhi airports at that time, and
Right.
then you're this huge, each trying to compete with each other in trying to get passenger experience into the thing, and that is a time in which when Bombay Airport, the new international airport happened, that is when we truly came onto the world stage in terms of passenger experiences and in terms of showcasing what airports could happen. That time, I think Chennai Airport also happened, and Ahmedabad Airport happened for that, and so things like that. So that is
Right.
the time when all these airports came into the scene. I think at that time about 20 new airports came into the thing, and now what I understand from airport that is 35 new airports are being planned. So the whole started, and subsequently when we started designing airports, we started realizing that not only it's the passenger experience counts from the time you get off the car, the time you do checking, the time you do the security, the time you do the security lounge, how much retail experience can you push into that space. And so when we did the Delhi 1D, then we had kept a fair amount of margin for security, and then the new retail experience started coming in. So it's all about experience. And since that this whole idea of people having to come in about 2 hours early before a flight, especially for international and everything else, and they tend to spend a fair amount of time in the airport itself. At that point of time, yes, it makes a lot of difference. The second thing which you said very correctly is that this is the first gateway to the city or to the country. So besides the fact that we have concentrated in the departure terminals, the arrival terminals are also now becoming a bigger statement. So starting with, from example, say Beijing Airport, where the travel experience is as grand as the departure experience. So similarly, now we have got airports which are now in Bangalore, or for that matter, we can find that the volume of the space which was there in the departure, the same volume of space is now coming in the arrival terminals. So it's the sense of arrival, and at the time when you come out of the terminal and get into the city, that whole thing is a very, very important thing. And I am very happy that the current designers are taking care of it. The other important fact is now becoming, like in Bombay Airport, we are also designing the transit-oriented development in and around the station forecourt, the Aero City, which is also becoming a very important aspect of design, where it's not only about a terminal, it's about the space outside the terminal when you come out, is when you start glimpsing the city itself. That is becomes the thing. The way you connect to the city, whether it's through the metro or whether it's through the taxis or whether this thing, that interchange is important. It's a great experience in Changi, great experience you get in Schiphol. You get the forecourt area, for example, the Seoul that you mentioned. When you come out and there's a new interchange, interchange which happens, the fantastic places. So something which is happening, and I think I'm glad that we are having a great set of designers for now designing integrated airport terminal, as I would say it.
Very good, sir. Thank you very much for the inputs. I do agree that airports have gone beyond just traveler destinations. They are destinations in themselves, so to say. Thanks very much for the answer. I would like to pose my next question to Professor Charanjit Shah. Charanjit, sir, building an terminal is fertile ground for creativity for architects and designers like you. A lot of emphasis is now being put into design, innovation, style, and even culture. Take the example of the new Beijing airport or even the Mumbai airport being designed using parametric modeling. And even at our new terminal, Mumbai T2 terminal, walking all the way from security gate to the boarding point is an immersion of various cultural experiences. What is your take on this?
Thank you, Mr. Subramaniam, for asking me this very delicate question. And I must say that, I've been involved, fortunately, with Airport Authority of India for the last now more than 2 decades, doing more than 20 airports around the globe. And when we actually started initially about 50 years back, when Chennai airport was made and other global competitions were done, that time the practically we're trying to showcase the technology and large span steel structures, and probably it was like creating global architecture. But perhaps as we grew through the various making of the airports, we were just initially starting to do architecture which was in terms of belongingness to people and place, only in terms of interior into art, sculpture, and other things put together. But now lately, fortunately, we are now doing like some of the airports like Bhubaneswar, Varanasi, Rajkot, even Agartala. There what we tried, even the physical planning, beside the planning, the aesthetics is relevant to the place and people. And once I reach to the airport, I can say why I am at Odisha or Bhubaneswar. So that is what we've done. Fortunately at Bhubaneswar, we just put the local flavor and we make a Jagannath chariot, with the local flavor of
Okay.
art in Iconarch wheel and the motifs, the art and architecture put into the contemporary style with the last man structure, pre-stressed concrete, and that is the flavor. As you come to Bhubaneswar and at the airport, you say that you are at the Jagannath Puri itself. So these are the type of things which are now innovating, where we are trying to make an integrated approach towards Indian sustainable smart architecture, perhaps where you have the local flavor and also the global flavor in terms of the technology. And that is what we've done in Varanasi, which is like the Ganges, the Ghat, the local flavor of temple architecture. Then you talk about silk sarees and the carpets. All those things are interwoven into the design. And once you are inside or outside the airport, you feel as if we are at that place. Similar attempt we are doing at the Rajkot itself. So I'm just trying to narrate that today's contest is that how do you create, identify our architecture, which is Indian, and of course, which has a great, we as this part of the continent, we have the great heritage of, I think, more than 2000 years, and that has so much of technology and art and architecture which can enhance the aesthetics, and it can even give me a local flavor. So that is the type of architecture perhaps we try to do. But today's contest is probably not the large span stuck in large areas, but we need to see how we do the capacity building itself, and we increase the efficiency of the airports within the same areas also. That is what we're trying to do. Biometric, we're trying to create all those facilities where you just walk around and use the technology and use lesser space in waiting in the like in check-in areas, and more into the other areas like I say into the commercial areas, retail, commercial, other areas can generate more areas in terms of even revenue generation. You take less time to move around because in today's contest, aviation is not a luxury, it's like necessity. And the more time consuming is other transports, and that has perhaps to be seen that how we create these as intermodal modal hubs also, and the last mile connectivity is also there along with other modes of transport, so that you reach to your destination from your house to an office to a meeting in a very shortest time. So that is another thing which needs to be looked into the architecture planning in terms of movement. The exit routes are very important, and the travel of the passenger is very important. The minimalistic time to be taken from the check-in to the boarding. So all these aspects are today in a very technically we are analyzing each and every issue, and probably I would say that there's a lot of scope to understand, as my friend Nilabh Nagarji has said, that we need to see that how the air side, the terminal, the city side, the land side has to be integrated into the large greenfield master plans, which probably we are doing 6 of them in Telangana, the greenfield airport. and also now we're doing one of the green airport in Nepal, Kathmandu. So these are certain opportunities where we can explore possibility of making an integrated approach towards making a mini cities at the terminal. That is not only a terminal, but is a composition of many more things put together. So I would rather appreciate that in case we understand all these things and we put all together and we vision out the master plan in a manner that it can really last for once 100 years or 200 years perhaps when we talk about greenfield airport. Because as you see in Bombay or in any other airports in Chennai, all those old airports, we find so many issues because of the land. Yeah, like Chennai, when we're doing, we are actually betting on the road itself. There is no place on the land where you can even exploit onto the, making a aero city. So these are some of the things we learn from what we have already done, how the areas are so much squeezed in, and perhaps we need to see that the integrated approach in terms of planning is a must today, and we have to think beyond many, many years to come and make that sort of an infrastructure, which is also walkable, like we did in Chennai, intermodal hub, where 4 modes of transport are connected, like railways, highways, metro, and international to domestic air with about 40 walkolators through the glass tube, which is also connecting all these 4 modes of transport. So these are the issues. Perhaps it is the architecture planning is not limited to only a tunnel building, but one needs to realize how the complete master plan rotates in terms of the technicality of the airspace to airspace conflict to air traffic to all movement put together, and we create an integrated approach like A to Z in aviation. And perhaps then only we'll be able to create that sort of an architecture where even the architect planner has an association with other technical peoples, like even I would say ATC tower. I would say, putting a DVR, putting, many more things like isolation bay or, any other aspects where even Cat 1, Cat 2, 3, Cat 3 light, all these are some of the things which needs to be approached at one goal, one center, and we say epicenter, and everything moves around, and then we create. The airport need not to be looked upon only on the planning of a terminal, but holistically, we need to see how all the 4 modes of airport in terms of airside, terminal, and city side and land side are integrated in a very professional manner. So I think that is what I would have an take on this as doing airports around the globe, even in Gabon. We are doing in Belgrade, now we're doing in Nepal. We understand that the type of understanding which I would proudly say that Indian architects, planners, and the technical people have, we are no less than any global players, and we can always work, even I would say better than the global players with the type of expertise which we have developed through the last, I would say after independence in 50 odd years. Thank you very much, Mr. Subramaniam. Over to you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for showing us the ring side of urban design, architecture, planning, urban planning, and all that is involved, technology that is involved in design of airport. Thank you very much. My next question goes to Sreekumar, sir. Sir, in architecture, they say form follows function. The most successful airports that exist today are the ones that have been designed keeping functionality in mind. Can you please elaborate here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Basically, I'm not an architecture, so the architects I had already explained. But this one will come to based on the overall planning and other things you told about the airport. When you are talking airport, basically the three things will come. That is, one is basically air side, other is the terminal side, we can say. And the deciding factor for design of all these things is the capacity requirement. Capacity requirement also, different capacity requirements are there. Runway system capacity is there, terminal capacity is there, city side capacity is there. And always we used to talk that there should be some synchronization between all these capacities. And the other major thing is that the capacity itself is not static. It is a form of dynamic system only. It is going on changing. The norms will go on changing according to the changes taking place in the processes, technology changes taking place. So I wanted to just talk about the air side. Air side today, maybe the runway length is available for, say, for Airbus 320. It is not suitable for 747. But we cannot discard it just like that, because tomorrow there can be vertical, that is stall aircrafts coming in 747 type of category aircrafts also. So that type of aircraft, this airport may be suitable for bigger aircraft in future. Similarly, some obstacles are there. Nowadays, DVOR, ILS are all becoming obsolete, and the satellite-based navigation technology is coming. So that means that some of the airports which we discarded today, it will be definitely can become a good airport in future. So that what I wanted to tell is, you are talking about the functionality part. So the functions are going on changing and the requirements are going on changing. So airport, airside, these are the normal the things which are happening nowadays. Is the major thing is satellite-based communication is coming, and definitely it is going to change in a very, what you can say, system itself. Totally, it is going to change. And coming to the terminal building also, nowadays we are there are certain norms. That norms is decided almost some 10-15 years back by a group of the, what you can say, officers. It was that norms was decided, and that is being followed even today. But that norms, definitely it is not that sacrosanct. The capacity of a terminal building will be decided with the passenger profile, what type of passenger going, and the potential, what is the potential of that one. Then the availability and shape of land also need not be the same type of the designs should come. The designs can also change. And the operational constraints what we are facing. Based on all these things, the terminal building designs also will change. And then the what I feel is that the concept of terminal building itself is changing from an efficient way of moving people. Earlier it was a terminal building means only for the people to move in an efficient way. From that, it is changing it as a way of experiencing the airport. That is a major change now, or major shift now taking place. There actually the architects have a major role to play. And the technology development, as I mentioned, technological development, and particularly the IT related, whatever technological development is taking place is going to change the design of terminal building in a very big way. That usage of artificial intelligence in design itself, not only in design, how the passenger behavior is changing. All these things can be measured with now artificial intelligence and the supporting softwares. And with that, the overall design concept is changing. And the changing environment, that is also very paramount. Why I am telling changing environment, after 9/11 incident, the security all of a sudden become very paramount, very important for the design of the terminal building. Now we are seeing that after COVID, how it is going to be. Now the health concerns became more paramount. So like this, the changes are going on taking place. So what I feel that when we are designing a terminal building, the design should be flexible enough to take such a type of the changes taking place in the environment. If it is not there, you are talking about 100 years, forget about 100 years. Nowadays, the life cycle is going on changing or going on reducing. So I don't think we should think something more than 30 years. And the most thing is that the new technologies are making like this biometrics. New technology in IT, we can see that biometrics is there, smart check-in is there, then the baggage tracking system is coming. These type of already these changes are we are witnessing. These are making our terminal building area, some of the terminal building area, particularly the check-in and other areas, redundant redundant space is being created, and which is compelling us to remodify the space to make use of the terminal in a better way. And more such technological changes are in the anvil, like you are in scanning. Full body scanner is there. And then the total this Digi Yatra system is going to come. So all these changes, how it is going to shape the new terminal buildings, that is a very, very, very important thing.
I'm sure Airports Authority is among the first to adopt technology and change, and I see that happening very, very fast in all the Indian airports. The next question is to Ms. Aryama, ma'am. Aryama, ma'am, how can the passenger process and experience be improved, given that the estimated increase in capacity is going to happen over the next few years?
Yes, it's a very good question, because when we design any airport, we design thinking of a particular capacity, but the capacity itself is very dynamic. And along with the capacity, to contain the capacity is also dynamic. Like during COVID times, we have this social distancing. Now in social distancing, when I'm having arriving aircraft at my airport, so I have to plan the scheduling in such a way so that not more than so many aircraft come together, because in each aircraft, if we have around 150 people and we have a small terminal building or conveyor belt, then I should be able to see that the social distancing is taken care of due to COVID. What I'm trying to stress upon is the capacity itself is very, very dynamic. Today, whatever you plan as a capacity, your design should be so flexible to take care of the needs of tomorrow, which has been thrown to us by COVID. Tomorrow, it could be something else. Now, as a passenger, my motto or my objective as a passenger would be to exit the airport, board an aircraft, or when I'm an arriving passenger, exit the airport smoothly. And during the time that I'm in the departure post security, I would like to experience the airport, some commercialization, some facilitation which takes care of it. As a passenger, this entire journey to the terminal till the aircraft or exiting the terminal and going back home should be very smooth. Now, during COVID times, we have taken care to see that we are not touching objects like the CUS machines that we have for printing boarding cards. We have in my airport, they are now touchless, contactless using Wi-Fi. So such changes will continue to come, like the security frisking at my airport is now through scanning, where the security personnel is not stamping your boarding card, he's recording it through a camera. Even when he's frisking you, he's not touching you. So this flexibility also determines the capacity, as you said, because you cannot do the things that you used to do before pre-COVID, which used to be together, 3-4 people together. Now there's a time lag. So what I'm trying to tell you is any design of any airport should be integrated with a sense of place, flexibility to take care of the needs, and things and changes will continue to keep on popping up. Change is dynamic. The journey is an integral part and a necessity, and we should be flexible enough to take care of. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm seeing that your statements have actually brought a lot of confidence to most of us listening to you to go back and travel again. So thanks very much for all that you've given. One last question to both Mr. Nagar and Charanjit sir. Acoustics is often the hidden element in design. And how do you think acoustics is playing an increasing role in design of public spaces, and how is it governing your choice of materials? First you, Nilabh sir, then Mr. Charanjit.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I was just about to mention that while Mr. Nair and then technology which is coming to the fore in the sense that terminal design based on capacity, terminal design is based on technology, terminal designs and based on passenger experiences. So I think acoustics falls under that idea of passenger experiences of trying to be while because the high density of people who are there, it is important that the acoustics is quite an important factor to it, and especially because there is always a balance between what is a good maintenance, which requires hard surfaces, versus acoustic, which requires a certain amount of soft surfaces. So it's a matter of choice, which you kind of create a balance to make it happen. And so that's something which we take care of both by using steaming and another thing about technology, kind of trying to use electroacoustics into the play, where the design of the speakers itself is done in such a manner that you kind of design. We had the same challenge when we did Bombay T1C. The building design itself was curved glass on the outside, and we had to have speakers and fair amount of glass which is used because you want to bring in a fair amount of natural light into the terminals. So you tend to design both by freestanding fixtures or freestanding absorptive elements. Ceiling is a good absorptive element, and then you try and design it by technology in the whole space. But overall, besides acoustic, I would say natural light and volume is also critical aspects of terminal design. When you again with a fair amount of retail and aspects of art, which professor also said this as well, this gives a sense of identity to the terminal. So you know which part of the world you come to. There is certain technology which is global, comes to for all airports. But sculptures, art, these are the things which make a particular airport very distinct for that particular region, that particular city, and identity. So I think these are the factors which I take care of when it comes to airport.
Thank you, sir. Uh, Charanjit sir, your opinion on how
You're
your
on mute, sir.
how
You know,
sorry,
absolutely.
Charanjit sir, if you could
Yeah.
just keep your camera up a little proper because because your face was very close to the camera.
Okay. Now it's okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir, better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely a very valid question, and I would rather put it other way around, that in case we follow the standards of sustainability in terms of passive ways of design, all these things are resolved. You know, in terms of, suppose I respect the oscillation of sun. In a hot and dry climate, I try to protect my building from the west glare light, and I have a north and south glazed portions, and on the north and south I put my glazing, and south also I put a shaded glazing where I do not get the glared sun inside. So, and in case of the outer facade, I put some of the autoclave blocks and other materials. So material selection probably is one of the very prime consideration, even in terms of heat load. And then I see, that I get the maximizing daylight and minimizing heat gain into my building. And acoustics is a byproduct. Once I do all these things put together, then I understand what is the type of flooring I need. That's why you see the mix and match of the soft flooring and soft paneled walls. And in Chennai, we even impressed upon doing something without putting a false ceiling. Like in Vadodara also, we did exposed steel structure, and without even false ceiling, but taking care of all the acoustics, you know. So there are ways and means, not that we always add on materials and something is for acoustics, something for the air conditioning, something is for something else. But in case I really give some sort of a, knowledge based passive strategies in design planning, where I do mutual shading, where I see that the harsh sun doesn't come in and I do not have the finished materials which are reflectors and which give me eco. So all these things are very, very, I would say, take the first step towards making something which is sustainable, and I do not add on, and then I say I have done something which is absolutely LEED certified and which is like good acoustics. The any public address system can work in some other ways also, where probably I do not need to really put in a lot of pressure onto my wall treatments. There are many more other things also which can be done. So my take is always there, that in case like Mr. Subramaniam addressed this question, that form comes first or the function comes first. Form and function complement each other, and form is a product of functionality, and functionally it is a product wherein we get complementing each other, supplement each other to give me the best of form and best of functionality. Probably that can be achieved by way of physical and active strategies of green design, and which can lead to absolutely sustainable architecture. Thank you very much, Mr. Subramaniam.
Thank you very much, Charanjit sir and Nilabh sir. And I would like to close the session with a few thoughts from all the panelists, starting with Aryama ma'am on this one.
Subramaniam, it was great listening to you. And I feel that our airports of tomorrow should be futuristic, green, sustainability should be there. And we should also be flexible, and form should definitely take care of the requirement. And I'm very sure with a very excellent and progressive-minded team of architects that we have in India, we are going to have great airports of tomorrow. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Sreekumar sir, your final viewpoints.
Yeah, as we had already discussed and all agreed that a change is taking place, and the change is the buzzword. So that change is taking place in the passenger requirements also, and our thoughts also. With that, nowadays the design of terminals are coming not with the passenger experience, with the aim to make it a passenger delight. So there, in fact, the architecture of the building is very, very important. And as already explained, it should be more sustainable. It should be more flexible enough to adapt to the changes in a very fast way. And I think we are taking care of these design concepts in our upcoming buildings. And I'm sure that in India, like the developed countries, definitely a major change is taking place in these design concepts, and we will have more and more very beautiful terminal buildings and very, what you can say, very useful terminal buildings in future. And I wanted to add here one more thing, that is regarding the low-cost building or the terminal buildings, which is coming under the regional connectivity scheme, or the airports coming under the regional connectivity scheme. In the next 5 years, almost 100 new or unserved or underserved airports are coming under the regional connectivity scheme. But of course, that terminal buildings, the purpose is slightly different. But it is going to be definitely a major change taking place in the civil aviation sector. With this positive note, let me.
Thank you very much, sir. The outcome of the discussion is that we see that there is a lot of change that's happening in the way airports are being designed, and the constraints that are coming every day, including recent pandemic, which is affecting the way design and the functioning of airports are happening. And as we will see, and as Charanjit sir said, Indians are second to none, and we are actually churning out some of the best airports around the world. And we have a lot of examples here. Hopefully, I think this session has been very, very interesting and informative to all of us. It has certainly been very, very informative and interesting to me. I take this opportunity to also thank the eminent panelists who are all stalwarts in their own might. My sincere thanks to iDAC for making this webinar happen and the panel discussion happen. And my greatest thanks to all the audience who've been here all along and with us. And we hope surely that you had a very, very interesting session. Thank you.
Architect Christoph Tim, Associate Director, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, that is SOM, is responsible for some of the world's most technically and environmentally advanced buildings and significant public spaces. Their approach is highly collaborative, with interdisciplinary teams working from a network of creative studios from across the globe. SOM's Associate Director, Architect Christoph Tim, is a senior leader of the SOM Enclosure Group in New York and brings 20 years of experience to the team. His interests and expertise lie in designing building enclosures, both in their aesthetic appearance in varying light conditions and their performance throughout the seasons. He takes great interest in efficient assemblies and structures featuring materials and techniques to the new building process. Architect Vivek Bhole, Principal Architect, Neo-Modern Architects. With its head office in Mumbai of around 40,000 square feet and more than 250 technical and support staff, Architect Bhole has successfully completed more than 800 projects and is working on over 500 ongoing projects in India and abroad. His portfolio includes a wide variety of mega projects. He has received over 60 national and international awards, along with many design competitions. His interactive and collaborative design processes have become his signature in architectural practice.
Thank you, Christoph, for agreeing to give this presentation. Although we have seen this presentation at the time of Mumbai iDAC, but then there were so many small details which we would like you to explain today. And I'm starting with my first question here. Like, what was that one thought with which you started the design of this mega structure? Was it like structure representing the rising economic power of our country or a technological strength? What was that?
Well, Vivek, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me back in to talk about this great project. It's always fun for me to do this and prepare. I prepared a little bit more details about certain subjects and maybe go into depth also on others. And so to answer your question, I wanted to first point out what to us as architects usually makes great work, great architecture, and that is a very, very collaborative environment with our client. And what you see here on the screen is the managing director of GVK, our client at the time, a great collaborator for us. And you can see his quote here. He wanted to have the best terminal in the world. And that, of course, as an architect, comes almost as a scary something because it's a pretty high bar that is being set here. However, it's a great opportunity for us as architects to rise to the occasion and together achieve this goal, this vision that Sanjay had, which to us is critical, that we work with strong clients that have visions that they are committed to and they stick to all the way through this very, very long, this marathon process. It takes years executing an airport project like this. And so, so it's good to have a strong leader on the client side, and Sanjay certainly was it. So that was the first thought that came to my mind, to our mind, was like collaboration and the challenges and respect for the project. Secondly, of course, you know, you have a project of that magnitude in a foreign country where you have built before. SOM, for example, has executed work successfully in Hyderabad, the Park Hotel there. However, you know, we haven't worked on a project of that magnitude in India before, back then in 2007. And so, so that was, of course, a challenge that came to my mind as well, to our mind. However, you know, given the experience that we have with projects all around the world that we have executed successfully, we were ready and willing, of course, to take this on. And one of the things that make our airports, I think, special is giving them a place. An airport in, let's say, San Francisco shouldn't be looking like an airport in Mumbai or in Tel Aviv or in Manila or wherever in the world. An airport, in our opinion, has to have a genius loci, something that relates it to where it is. And coming back to the strong personality of Sanjay, this was the perfect client for us to work with, because he had that vision and he was committed to it and stuck to it. So to answer your third question about what the expression is, I think it's both of this, what you were mentioning. It's the economic power that you saw and the technological strength of the country, for sure. But thirdly, this both is shown by the sheer needs to improve the capacity of the existing structure, existing terminal. At the time when this all happened in 2006, 2007, India was seeing, Mumbai terminal was seeing like 20% increases year to year of passenger numbers. So there was a real need. And of course, that need is a manifest of India's economic development in the last 15, 20 years.
Okay. So, Christoph, we are always amazed of the magnificence, grandeur, and the detailing of Mumbai T2 terminal. And I, being the extensive user of this building, know what is achieved in terms of architecture. Now, I am more interested in how it was done. It is a structural marvel, very rich in detailing, but more important is to make it functional. So I would like to understand the design process of such mega scale project.
Yeah, a project of that magnitude is, of course, a challenge. And we as architects, we see ourselves as a master architect, somebody, an organization that brings together all the constituencies, all the disciplines that are involved in the planning and execution of a project of that magnitude. So that goes all besides the design. When it starts, in regards to like how a project like this starts, we'd look at first of all at the constraints, all the brief that's been given to us. And here in Mumbai, obviously there's a lot of constraints because the airport is so landlocked, and we have on the west side we have the T1 terminal, the domestic. Then we have the T2. At the time, 2006, it had to be operational, and so all these and then the surrounding city was obviously a lot of constraints. You can see here, I'm going to list them. So the existing airport had to be like maintained operation almost 24/7. Then we had a hard constraint of the runway that had to be like continuously operational to the largest part. And then we had also like some historic villages that we couldn't be touching. And then there was some softer constraints like the Miti River on the east side, as well as some of the fueling stations towards the north, or fueling areas for planes, or like a storage, I should say. And so, and then also, of course, also the cargo areas and the cargo lanes and the taxi lanes that were also like had to be maintained to some degree. So these constraints were like, where some of them were very, very hard, and we had to understand them. We have to totally abide by them. And others were kind of like a little bit more manageable. We could massage them a little bit. But this kind of led us to the design of the terminal and the shape of the terminal. The structure that we came up had this X, and you can see it, how it really kind of fits nicely into all these constraints that I just talked about. And so a cardinal rule for us at SOM is phasing. A project has to be phasable, because especially a project that happens in the middle of the city. So you have to make sure that you don't just have a beautiful design, but you have to be able to build that design while an old airport, an old structure is still operational. You know, so we always say, if you don't have phasing, you don't have design. So I wanted to quickly run you through here what, just really quick, like there's various phases. And here you can see a slide from when the construction had already started, and you can see in light blue here the existing airport that's already a little bit cut back on the west side, and then so the work starts on the west side and progresses all the way to the head house that is inside the access road. And you can see at this point here in dark blue, you can already see that the new terminal, part of the new terminal, is operational. The concourse is being used by the old airport here rendered in light blue, while the rest of the new airport is still under construction. So you understand how this is really a Swiss watch operation. And so here we move on. Now the main airport is the main terminal, the head house is operational, and the old airport is gone pretty much. And so this is basically where we are right now, end of phase one. And potentially there could be also an additional phase where we add a few more gates. And if we like really make some big changes, we could go also like in even more of additional gates, which would bring, of course, the capacity of the airport even to a much higher level than what we have right now. But for now, it looks like this, and I think the general public doesn't really understand it from day to day or from visiting, that the airport is actually, it's like almost a living organism. It's the shape of it, design of it, it could still evolve, and we have plans for that. And we'll see, the future will show how it evolves.
So I used to always think that the actual size of the terminal is much bigger than the number of the gates. So now I understood why it is so. Yeah.
So I think it's kind of nice to take you through the experience of arriving at this airport and how you make your way to the gates, because it's critical that the airport just doesn't look good. it has to just as you mentioned in your question, it has to function and has to work. And airports to us have a lot to do with like intuitive design, that people find their way nicely without having to ask questions. Their eyes, the view always is kind of like choreographed, so they know where they have to go next. And so that's certainly a critical design feature in that we try to achieve on all our projects. And so let me walk you through how a user may experience this building.
Okay.
So first, after arrival, you have this gigantic drop-off area here that you can see. It's over 300 meters long, 70 meters wide. It's quite an experience, as you know, but it's very, very simple to know where to go. Pretty simple, you know, to see those golden vestibule areas that punch through this cable net wall over 300 meters long. So, you know, it's pretty intuitive. You get it. Once you pass through the vestibules, you already see like, okay, so this is where I have to go. There's the check-ins. You have a clear understanding of what happens next. It takes stress out of people because, as you mentioned earlier, you know, you use this airport all the time, but there's a lot of people who don't. There's a lot of people who travel once in a while, and as we know, travel can be stressful. And so the more information, visual information you give, or visual clues you give to people of how to make your way through a big building like this, the better it is. So after the check-in, of course, you advance, you go to security and immigration. And you can see here in this diagram, the leaders from the north coming down towards the south, towards the piers. It's always one direction. There's hardly any changes of direction. We try to minimize changes of level as much as we can. There is some level changes, but if they do happen, we have tried to keep them as, again, straightforward, as clear as possible, that you understand where you need to go. So here, this is the change from the 4th floor to the 3rd floor as you go to your gate. You have the same. You have some changes in direction. This is what I showed earlier. This was the international departure. If you go to the domestic departure, there is some changes if you want to go up to the north piers of this X. But again, we're trying to always like guide the eye of the passenger towards the next step and make that very clear. And what helps us with that is oftentimes light. We like to direct with light. So a lot of daylight, a lot of natural daylight throughout the terminal, as you know. And so you see the coffers here on the ceiling, you know, that's all daylight. We also have this continuous curtain wall, high performance glass curtain wall on the sides that comes in. The people mover make you get faster to the gates, of course. And then there's some screens here and there that protect the user as much as possible from glare, and the building also from the higher solar loads that come with all this glass that we have on the building. So this is how you arrive at your gate. This is the experience. This is hopefully what we think is making this project extremely successful in wayfinding for the individual user, for the common man who goes through this, not the everyday user like you are maybe.
No, even for the first time when I went there, I didn't have to ask anybody. The flow is so simple, as you rightly said. You don't have to ask anybody. It has got so many spaces and detailing. So how many consultant and agencies were involved in the design and both?
There is a whole series of consultants that we work with. Of course, there's the typical ones. There's the structural engineer, there's the mechanical engineers, but there's also like very, very critical consultants to us who are wayfinding, who are signage and wayfinding specialists that we work with. There is landscaping, of course, that we have to work with. There is a lot of security requirements, so we have security consultants there, and security government agencies that also like have a huge say on how things have to be choreographed. There's also other agencies that control like how an airport is run basically, where the access points are, who can go through these access points. And this government agency in India specifically is called BCAS, and they are extremely powerful, or they have to basically sign off on all your ideas and designs that you want to try out or like construct. And I'll give you an example. When you go to T2, you have two security checks, one for domestic and one for international departure. That wasn't the original case, the original planning. The original planning was to have a single security envelope, which of course comes with efficiencies in space, efficiency in personnel that needs to be used. And unfortunately, they kind of evolved in their opinion, this agency, and they originally had kind of given us the green light to go with a single security checkpoint, but then they evolved and it had to be two. Why does this matter? Well, for the airport manager, it means twice the amount of space, or almost twice the amount of space that has to be like provided, and that he cannot use elsewhere. It also means like personnel has to be doubled up, so there's huge consequences that come with these kinds of changes. But the key is always to us in all your design efforts to not design towards a limit. And what I mean by that is like always allow yourself a little bit of fluff, a little bit of wiggle room, how you can adjust your design. Flexibility in airports is absolutely key these days. So not just for things like I just talked about, but also for the future, to future-proof a building. And so this is a good example how this building T2 was able to adjust to these change of regulations that we may see in the future.
Okay, so my question was like to do the collaboration with so many agencies. I'm sure there must be hundreds of them, from execution to consultancy to approvals. So how do you collaborate? Are there any tools for coordination? Maybe some software, some cloud-based tools, or something you used and made it possible, because all the consultants are sitting in different parts of the world. So how do you collaborate?
Well, I have to say, we collaborated back then in 2000, starting in 2007 until 2014, or until now, pretty much the same way. The names have changed a little bit. The platforms have changed. It used to be GoToMeetings. Now it's Zoom most of the time. We used to use a lot of email. Now it's a messaging service like Slack that we use a lot. So, but ultimately, we've not changed much. We back then we had these video conferences pretty much weekly. We had workshops on a very, very regular basis. So we would go over to India for pretty much every month or so in those early stages to meet with all the disciplines or the stakeholders, constituencies. And yeah, that's something that I really forgot to mention earlier too. Airlines are also a huge constituency here that needs to be satisfied, and you have to have conversations with airlines early on about all of this. So we met all those stakeholders in India on a regular basis, besides these weekly video conferences, and then also at some critical project moments, we would have like really boots on the ground. We'd have our staff in Mumbai to be there on site, and for whatever needed to be done. That could be like a handover from our detailed design at the end of detailed design to the EPC, the contractor, L&T, to make sure that nothing gets lost in translation, that we always get across that design vision and not miss something here. So it was a mixture of like in person and also like virtual back then, and I think that's going to be the same way we're going to deal with this in the future.
So now we have adopted it after pandemic. In India,
I'm sorry, say
India
it again.
Adopted the online conferencing after pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Christoph, in T2 terminal, the pickup is very far from the exit. So if you see the exit of the terminal building and the taxi pickup, it's almost like 400 meters. So was it on purpose or it's going to be changed in space? This is always a question for us, why it is done so. And if any change is there that is going to happen in next phase, we would like to understand. And one more problem when what we face is the carpets in the corridor. So there are limited travelators, the movement is crisscross. So, and then the conflict of the pedestrians with the golf carts for VIPs. So all those corridors are creating very critical problems for travelers. So I'm 100% sure they will remove those carpets instead of replacing them next time. But is there any provision to sort it out in phase 2, all these issues?
Well, let me answer this question here, or these two questions, with the arrival sequence and how you experience the airport as you travel towards Mumbai or into Mumbai. You fly into the terminal, and the first thing that you really experience is the passenger boarding bridges, all glass. So I think that's a very, very nice experience, first of all, because in other terminals you see they're opaque like tunnels, but in Mumbai they are all glass. It's beautiful, all daylit. You enter the actual the fixed link bridge, actually, not before you enter the terminal. And within this fixed link bridge that spans over the apron road, you go down on the second level, because the second level is the arrival level. And what happens then next is, like, I think what you're talking about is, like, you come to an area that is where we have carpet on the floor, and you can see the color, the red carpet. That was one of the ideas, if you, in a joking way, we thought, like, you roll out the red carpet and you make that space like something special with the carpet, a warm, welcoming textile material rather than something more stone and heavy and hard. And but I understand.
Welcoming, it is really welcoming, but then when you have got trolley in your hand, it is not.
That's true. That's true. And not to blame anybody about this, but there's always as architects we specify certain carpets, and not always everything gets built as per our specification. Sometimes the carpets are a little bit softer or like deeper than specified. I'm not saying this is what happened here, but maybe also it could have been like the carpet could have been designed a little bit or could be installed a little bit thinner. However, I mean, this I think is still like a magnificent space. If you think about it, you have on one side all glass, high performance curtain wall. On the other side, we have all this changing artwork. As you walk there, you shouldn't be. I mean, I get what you're saying. It is a long walk. I completely hear you. But this was intentional to this carpet. I'm not aware of a change in any future phase. But I mean, carpets, wear out. So maybe there's a different type of carpet in the future that is thinner, or maybe a completely different material that may be. We also, when it comes to like how difficult it is to go along with your trolley, we understand that in India, it's the use of these buggies is much more prevalent than what we see in America, for example, where the buggies are pretty much like limited to people with disabilities who can't walk, and then pulling the trolley behind you is not that big of an issue. But I understand. I've heard this comment before, and we will consider it for sure in the future. So as you then walk along this the corridor, you again, once you hit the head house, the actual main terminal, you also have like natural daylight coming in from above, and you have this art wall all besides you. You enter these nice, this gigantic hall for immigration as an international traveler, and pick up your luggage. There's also it's a kind of it's nice artwork on the ceiling there, so it's a very welcoming, very, very bright lit space. And then you, of course, you exit the terminal through these vestibules, and you have all these greeters there. It's a pretty open space, and it was deliberate that we did not want to have cars there. So here in summary, real quick. So this is the level 2 floor plan and how you would arrive, and you can see the red leader here going the red leaders going here along the wall, and then into the immigration hall here, and then through immigration and then out. I have to correct you a little bit. Taxi pickup is on the floor below. Taxi pickup is immediately at curbside on ground level. So if you wanted to take a taxi, you could just exit the building and jump in the cab. I understand. I think you meant like private car pickup. That unfortunately I heard you, is not allowed at this point. But it will be. There's a potential that at one point it may be allowed. We are lobbying for this. But the bigger idea behind this is like it. You know, to when you exit the terminal, the building, that to have a kind of an Italian piazza there, like nothing that is like no honking cars and this loud like craziness that you see elsewhere.
The experience is heavenly. So once you come out of the terminal, those 5 seconds you feel like coming home, you know, and that environment is too good. There is no second thought.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I understand for people that travel every day, twice a week or whatever. It's kind of annoying. I get that. But like I say, that would be remediated if the level 1 pickup was changed, and you know the private car could just pull up and you jump in, you go, and then the regular tourist who comes to India for the first time and you steps out onto this piazza, you know, gets there, gets a nice welcoming touch and feel as well. One last point is also like, you know, the metro is being built. And I'm not sure what the schedule on the metro is, but having access from level 2 to the metro hopefully will also like you know, ridership. It will increase people using maybe public transportation and tie this the second level into a more commuting easy connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I saw your slide with Mr. Sanjay Reddy, and I want to know how much was your client's involvement, or maybe from client side, the managers or those who are influencers into the selection of the material and design.
Yeah, his involvement was tremendous. He and his team, of course, they were there along the way all the time, and really, I don't want to say pushing. That sounds too negative, but he was certainly there when with his opinion, with his vision that he had, and so that was a challenge, but a good challenge. We embraced it. It was almost never ending. It was like more and more and more, and I can talk about that a little bit later, about like maybe some of the ideas and the design features that were not built. But so a lot of what you see, the inspiration came from him or his team, and of course from India. Okay, Vivek, let me show you some of the images, what I'm talking about. Sanjay took us on a trip throughout India. He organized meetings with craftsmen, with villagers, for us to immerse ourselves in the various regions of India, the crafts that are making these regions special, and that he wanted to represent in this terminal, representing all these areas of India. So he took us on this trip and immersed ourselves. And of course, a lot what you see on the project really is in direct lineage of this trip. For example, the main feature of the building, the terminal, the roof, that is so inspired by the national bird of India, the peacock. It straight comes out of this trip. So he was very, very hands-on, educating us or introducing us to these crafts, to interesting architecture, traditional architecture in India, and I think the building reflects it. So yeah, I showed these pictures in January. How these relatively simple, from a construction technology standpoint, concrete and steel columns are clad. How what beautiful shapes we get, and if you squint your eyes, you can almost think this is a peacock here. And the installation and all the parametrics I talked about before, and of course this is recognized by you find this on stamps because it's so special, this building and this treatment, or also on Instagram, which we see more and more being like the gauge for like what makes things or spaces actually attractive to people and popular. So Sanjay, together with us, we developed a few features besides also the ceiling that is inspired by Indian heritage, I would say. For example, these chandeliers that you see throughout the terminals, I think it's in the thousands of them you have, and it's a one-off, it's a custom feature. We also have in the arrivals immigration area, we have this wall that is inspired by Dia lamps with this motif. We have also the pods in the departure in the head house with these pods that are similar to the roof, inspired by the peacock parametric design, and the jali window maybe. We have on the facade, on the glass, we have these frit patterns, those patterns that are inspired by fabric, textile, chikan patterns, embroidery. India is so well known for textile, so you'll find this on the glass as a ceramic frit, and all these walls, these regions of India that are represented along this art wall inside the terminal. You can see it here color coded on the right hand side, and plan where these different regions and different materials, 6 different regions are represented. There was a lot more that was developed together with Sanjay and the team. For example, a color scheme of coating the entire roof with 5 shades of white, as you can find in some traditional literature. This didn't make it into the project. We also have a feature of water walls that are not just aesthetics for like sound and visual calming, but they would also have had a performance-based aspect to them, because they take down relative humidity usually in a space, believe it or not, contrary to what you would think. But we've done this in the past, that waterfalls reduce relative humidity, but it didn't make it into the project. We had also some tree of life patterns as concept, also on the glass at the head house at the drop off, where we would have ceramic fritted the glass with these traditional motifs, but it just didn't make it into the project. So there was a whole lot of more that you don't see nowadays in the project. But I think it's kind of interesting on an occasion like this to kind of show this and make the listener, the audience here, understand that what you see is really a snapshot in time. What you see on the building is a snapshot in time, because some people made certain decisions. It could have looked slightly different here and there along the way, but it was really like a labor of love, and by Sanjay and us, of course, a few more here before I end this. But so we had also like a scheme where the columns would be like clad with, not clad, but like highlighted with some golden edges. But eventually this wasn't produced like this, these coffers. And also we had like a lot more inlays in the glass at these punch through areas of the gigantic columns. The glass was at one point like designed to have like reflective leaves in the inner layer, mirrors, and it didn't get executed. But you do see on the concrete, on the plaster wall, you see a little bit of this leaf pattern still, but the glass didn't get that. So in summary, there was what I'm showing here is a small percentage only of all the ideas that came out of this collaboration of Sanjay, his team, and us, and this trip through India. And I think we struck a good balance in the very end, not to overload the building with these kinds of refinements. But I think it was great to do these exercises and then selecting a few specific highlights, ideas to implement them also in the project.
So they say for great buildings you require great clients, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It is so, I've said it before, it's so critical to work with clients who first of all have a vision, and then they are committed to the vision and they stick to it, and not come the first problem.
One thing, last thing about Sanjay, certainly he's a great client. There is no doubt about it. You are praising him so much, but then when you select out of so many options, what was the policy? Either you convince me or I'll convince you that was the policy, or I put my hand on this.
I wasn't there for some of these decisions, but I would think this was like a team decision that, you know, together we all made this decision at that point. And maybe some people had some personal preferences about some of the ideas. But I've never been told that this was a decision being made by one person alone. It was a team decision and a balancing.
It has come out wonderfully well. So it cannot be just one person's decision, and all that crafted wall on the arrival is there, you know. Even in the departure areas, you have got those artifacts and artifacts. All those walls, you see a lot of efforts and detailing there, and that exactly depicts the culture of India. And you rightly said, you must have taken a lot of efforts along with your client.
Yeah, and just to add on to this, I mean, this was Sanjay organized this, but there was also Sandeep Khosla and Abu Jani Sandeep Khosla who we collaborated with. So it wasn't just like Sanjay. There was there's a few very, very smart people at the table and inspiring us here.
Okay. So in India, architectural practices are small in comparison with the firm like yours. For projects of this magnitude, you require practices large enough to handle the So we have indirect limitations on the size of the firms, as the practicing architectural firm can either be a proprietor or a partnership firm only. What would be your advice to our policymakers if you wish us to handle mega projects in near future?
So, I mean, let me describe what the project team was like here on T2 in New York City at SOM. We had about, I would say, 20 architects at the peak of the workload working on this project, 20. And those were joined by some engineers and designers. So maybe a total of 30 people worked on this project. So it's not just the numbers that matter. It's actually what matters more is the right people, having the experience and draw from this experience so you can foresee future issues and avoid them with your design. So I would say that it doesn't take an office like ours with worldwide, whatever, 1,200 people to build a structure like this. These projects are intense, and but the teams are not like they're not in the hundreds and hundreds of people that you need. So, and I think you have offices that in India that could very well handle projects like this if they have the dedicated staff, if they have the experience that I talked about to handle this kind of complex architecture. So so we work and synthesize this process and bring everyone together, you know. So it's not just us knowing all this. We work with all the consultants. So what is critical, I think, is that you understand that early engagement of all the stakeholders, all the disciplines is absolutely crucial. One shouldn't wait with signing up the landscape architect or whatever consultant just because you think, oh, we don't need their input yet, or we want to keep it open or whatever. Not a good idea. One should like decide who to work with immediately, as quickly as possible. So everybody can, all the team members can bring to the table constraints or issues that they see, and these issues can be from an early stage can be addressed together as a team. And addressing issues with design is always much easier than once it's built. You know, once it's built, then it's hard to address issues unless you have flexibility built in. And then don't forget that that we had a fantastic EPC and L&T on our side. You know, there was an army of specialists on their side, so on the contractor side. So I think there is, like I say, there is offices in India size-wise that can, from a size standpoint, can absolutely handle these kinds of projects.
My own office is more than 160 odd people right now. So it is really a great hope for us now. When you say 30 good people can handle a project of this size, yes, it's really wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, can you explain a little bit more about the SOM's structure for handling this mega project? If you can show me something, if you have.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Let me step way back, and I'd like to show this this slide here of our founders, Mr. Skidmore and Mr. Owings. Skidmore on the right, Owings sitting, and Mr. Merrill on the left. The three of them, namesakes of the company, SOM. The company was originally started by Skidmore and Owings, who are architects. They were very soon then joined by Merrill, who was an engineer. And that tells you something about SOM. So from the get-go in the mid-1930s, there was an interest in working together, collaborating together as multidisciplines in one office. Not just architects, but architects and engineers. And so we have all kinds of engineers nowadays. We have mechanical engineers, structural engineers, designers on staff. So we are a multidisciplinary office. And so that is in the DNA of SOM. So the collective wisdom here that we bring to these projects is our DNA. It's very important. And just to give a few examples, you know, like the Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world. I mean, SOM structure and SOM architecture collaborated on this project. There is a reason why it looks like this, you know, because of the soil conditions. You know, we have the concrete buttresses here, those three at the bottom. So the architecture could not have been developed without structural criteria or soil conditions at that locale. Another good example is the Willis Tower, or what was it known for, the Sears Tower in Chicago. You know, the bundled tube concept by Fazlur Khan, famous structural engineer from SOM. Like I said, architecture and structure on this project is SOM, and the building would have never looked like if it had not been for the structure. So we love working together, collaborating. And the last example I wanted to share with you is actually not the last, but another famous one is Broadgate in the UK and London, where the building clearly looks like a bridge, and there's a reason why it does look like that, because it is a bridge. It spans some rail lines underneath that couldn't be disturbed with the columns. The Hancock Tower in Chicago is another great example of, I mentioned him on the very left, Fazlur Khan and Bruce Graham. Fazlur Khan, structural engineer, Graham, architect. They're presenting here to the client the Hancock Tower. And again, you can see how the building is exhibiting the structural concept. You can see the X-bracing in the building. And so we love collaborating very, very closely with all the engineers. And so let me take you let me talk about a few specifics on the T2 terminal here in Mumbai, just to get an idea real quick, like dimensions, the incredible dimensions of this project. Overall, you can see the numbers on the screen. Unbelievable if you think about it. There's various column grids that very carefully integrated into the architecture with different color codes you can see here. But of course, first of all, foremost important is the head house with its double span roof geometry, structural geometry here. In one direction, it's 34 meters, and in the other direction, it's 64 meters, spanned 15 meters above the departure drop-off area. The columns are majestic there. You can see just the sheer size. Just the structural columns are over 3 meters, almost 3 meters in diameter, and then they are clad. So there's a total of 28 of these columns. They're at times cantilevering 40 meters up from the ground. Incredible feature. And all of this construction is relatively simple, because with these kinds of quantities, you don't want to have like a very, very special detailing or like time-consuming detailing, especially if you know that all the steel is being clad up. So these are relatively straightforward, simple details that we utilized here for the steel, and the concrete is what it is. It's just the dimensions are just incredible. But kudos to SOMS, who managed to come up with this design and have this hovering lattice work of steel here. Incredible feature. We have these skylights that fit into the steel and bring down light to reduce again the solar loads due to electric lighting throughout the head house. The structure is actually the roof that floats over these columns is just one structural unit. There's no expansion joint whatsoever. It's just one system, as illustrated in the slide here, the red box. The concrete below is actually broken up into expansion joints. Next time you're at the terminal, you can see in the stone these expansion joints. They are visible in the stone. You'll see it, but it is it's pretty remarkable how the structure came together as a single element here, the steel, with these kinds of dimensions.
Good. So next time, whenever I'll go to this terminal, I'll look at it in a different way now. Now I got two more questions for you. See, Mumbai is coming up with new airport at Navi Mumbai, very near. So what do you think is the future of T2 terminal? After this new terminal becomes functional, whether this will be just domestic terminal or what they will do about it?
We believe that T2 is, the projections are super good. Airline travel will continue to grow once we go past that bump of COVID, we believe. We're very optimistic once there is a vaccine in place that that business will not be as maybe a year ago, but traveler numbers will bounce back significantly. So we see that T2 has a very, very bright future. It's I think Navi Mumbai will compensate for some of these added new passengers in quantity. I think T2 will definitely remain an international and domestic airport. Maybe the domestic part will slightly go towards Navi Mumbai. Navi Mumbai will also be an international airport, but maybe the ratio domestic versus international will be slightly different in Navi Mumbai than it is at the T2 terminal. We've seen some of the airlines, especially low-cost airlines, going to T1 anyway. We think T2 has a very bright future here, and will continue to see passenger numbers increase.
Christoph, if you compare both the terminals, the Navi Mumbai airport and this, we have got single runway 42, whereas it's a very spacious airport going to be there in the Navi Mumbai. So that will make some impact on T2 terminal for sure.
Okay, I'm not so involved in detail and to understand all the local politics or like planning, but we believe that we will see the numbers bounce back significantly, and we see a very rosy future for T2.
Okay, and you talked about COVID. So now we have learned, we have accepted that we have to live with COVID, and there will be many more pandemics in future we are going to face, because you know, corona is not a new virus, it is just a mutation. So various precautions are being taken at the airport right now, but if we have to redesign T2 terminal after COVID or for COVID, what will be the changes that you would like to do in the original planning?
Okay, this is a good question, of course, and we get asked a lot about this. So first thing is, like, I would say, like, you don't design for a certain threat, a COVID-19 or something specific. You design for flexibility, because we don't know what's going to be the next bump in the road at this point. You know, about 20 years ago in New York, we had the 9/11, and that impacted the airline industry, especially security. New measures were in place. Now we have COVID-19. Along the way, we had some other pandemics that didn't to that extent. So there will always be these bumps in the road. And so I think the key is to design with or for flexibility of these airports. And so the interesting thing is government regulations, specifically in India, help us a little bit with our approach to containing pandemics as we see. And let me explain what I'm trying to say here. It's interesting that in India, only passengers can enter the terminal. So right there, you have a barrier that you can utilize. You can take advantage and have some health screening right at the barrier, which would be the vestibule, you know. So we see that that in the future, maybe we plan for slightly bigger vestibule areas where you can have health screening, online health screening that checks everyone as you go through, and or whatever it is that we need to check for in the future. I don't know if it's just temperature or a nasal swab or whatever it is. So we have a dedicated area where we can kind of like, where we can control who enters the building. The same thing would have to happen, obviously, when people come to the airport. So at the gates. So maybe there you also have like a certain screening area where people can online get screened, and if somebody appears to have some symptoms, it can be taken to the side and contained, so the actual airport does not get like a spreader into the actual confines of this secure zone. So what would help there is also like potentially coming up with a system of a health passport. You know, maybe there is something that international people agree on some sort of a document that or testing, whatever, that could the individual could be carried and would be acceptable to other jurisdictions. And right now we don't have that. So maybe that is something to think about. If there is a real-time health passport that allows you to fly and sets a first check measure besides what I just talked about. So in Mumbai we have these already these relatively secure zone of the terminal, and we keep the general public outside and offer them in the future hopefully even more amenities. So well wishers that come to the airport, they can hang out there, but they do not make it inside the actual terminal. So another thing that's really interesting in Indian airports is the separation of people flow. In India, you separate the flow of international arriving passengers, international departing passengers, domestic arriving and domestic departing passengers. That right there is something you should tap in and utilize as a separation, keeping these big movements of people apart so you can control them better. And so naturally the Indian way, the way it's set up, helps us. And so I don't know, this may be also adapted by other jurisdictions, this kind of system to control more people movement, people interacting with each other. Obviously then there's other little details, not the details, like whatever surface areas you touch, you make them out of antimicrobial materials. You could also see, what I could see happening is that you have less hands-on experience, like security or some people taking passports. So you have less moments of where you hand over a document. So touchless communication or touchless screening as you walk down a corridor. Maybe there's some sensors on the left, right, that take certain measurements of yourself. I mean, we've been seeing the biometric security already, but all this could be part of this, trying to address these pandemics that we're hearing are maybe becoming more regular.
Okay, very nice. In fact, it's a fantastic idea. I never thought of this. Christoph, I think we come to the end here for a fantastic discussion, and I thank you for giving us this insight of this mega structure and giving us the pride to our city and to our country. So whenever we stand in front of this building, we always feel proud that we have this terminal. And thank you for designing this building for us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving this information. Thank you very much.
Sure, my pleasure, Vivek. I hope this was inspirational to all of you, architects in India, and whoever's watching. And yeah, it was a privilege to work on this project. And yeah, it's nice to hear your words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
A big thank you to our eminent speakers for the colossal knowledge shared this evening. A special thank you to our title sponsor, Armstrong Sealing Solutions. We thank our audience that has shown support and has tuned into this evening. See you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for yet another spectacular session with spectacular speakers. Until we meet again, stay safe. Thank you.